I also have to say, this has been advertised as a public meeting. It can be filmed or recorded by broadcasters, the media, or members of the public. I would advise you that a member of the public, Mr. Charman, is about to commence recording, as far as I can see. Right, we will start. We do have a report from PCSO. David Douglas, please.
Yes, he just sent his apologies and said that there was one recorded crime in the last month, which was a burglary to a property.
Yes. Or was it right? Members of the public, please. Mrs. Ashworth.
3 minutes concentrates the mind. This is about Penmarlham Slip and the development, which I know probably you're all aware of, and I don't know whether it's coming up on the agenda later.
It is on the agenda.
Okay, does that mean I can?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I'm bringing to the point that three of us here attended a spontaneous meeting of Mixto residents, but actually more than the three of us that were attending. It was added to by two harbour commissioners over at the slip to respond to the diagram of the new positioning of the proposal. When we got there, we were amazed at the new position, because that didn't seem to really be very much better. But okay, if that's the considered opinion, that's all right. Now, after that, I did get back to Paul Thomas with saying that after that meeting, well, we discovered that as it was going to be moved, that really the unwarranted felling of trees in the original thing was a total waste of money. And his point was, I've got emails, but I won't bore you with them now. I just wrote to him to say that, and he replied saying they'd taken Mixto residents' opinions into consideration, and that it caused them a great loss of money. So I've got the points that, just pick the main things out of here. My first query was there a qualified tree surgeon asked of an opinion as to whether those lime trees really did need felling? What was their condition? He writes back and says they did consult a qualified tree surgeon and also took the view of the Sylvanus Trust. I might add that we have Richard Davis as an architect next door to us who did want to see the plans. These plans have now been supplied as soon as possible, because a decision would need to be made as quickly as possible to stop anything. Sorry. He also said that they were, this business of incurring more cost because they were taking down the height of the building by a metre, so that would mean less storage facilities for them to get money back from the obviously good idea of making a viable thing for the port. We're certainly not against the harbour making proper use of it and making it a really viable proposition, particularly because of Jimmy Marine, which seems a very good idea. But if the real point here was that if they hadn't taken such hasty action in the sudden felling of the trees, the sudden earth removals, and then a complete change of plan to have it in another position, that's what's cost them money, and it didn't need to cost them money. It was an unwarranted, quick decision. Not enough. If they bothered to talk to us all about it, they would have saved a lot of money. It doesn't seem to me a terribly good way of proceeding. Ginny, did you want to say anything about? Well, we don't have to say again about an AONB, but why do this there without real consultation? Would it happen anywhere else?
Could I just add a few things to that? I think what is really worrying me that absolutely nobody at the meeting on site knew anything about it. Now, I know we should have been informed, and we went up about trees, and then we were met with this enormous building, which has now been moved, and I've been reading up as much as I can on the internet, and a letter went into the Guardian about further development in the future. They're going to make so much money out of this that they might need more, and that is one thing that's worrying me. This is a special area, it's very rural. They will, the next thing after this will be further expansion, because that's happened all the time. They filled up the place, more boats coming in, and it'll be a much bigger thing than it is at the moment. I just felt we were very neglected in Mixto by the Fowey Harbour, and I feel we need proper planting, and we would like to know if there are future plans as well, but perhaps that's asking a bit too much at this stage. That's all, thank you.
Any other further comments, please? Yes.
You're going to be discussing standing orders in 7A, which I'm pleased to see. I happen to be looking through some old minutes, and the minutes of the 24th of February 2014, you resolved to make 2 changes of standing orders. One was about allow public discussion for up to 3 minutes on planning applications immediately prior to the individual application. I don't see that that's ever been implemented in your standing orders.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to make a comment on something which isn't on the agenda?
Oh, wait a minute, would you like to?
You may be right, David, but as a matter of practice on planning applications, I do invite people to speak for 3 minutes before the thing. If you've missed it on the standing orders, I'll ensure to correct it. Thank you.
Well, it's in the minutes, and I looked at.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's necessarily the right one, but it was a resolution which doesn't appear to be printed in current standing orders.
It's been observed but not printed.
Thank you.
I speak on behalf of the still concerned Meadow Close Walk residents, as always. We're disappointed to observe that the terms and conditions do not give transparency regarding the building control records, and assume that Cornwall Council Planning are unable to view them either, but we're not surprised. We are pleased that condition 5 is being investigated, as most days there are 5+ vehicles parked along the road, supplemented by the necessary delivery lorries, and I did have to request that no vehicles be parked in front of number 8's garage/gate, so that the owner could have access when she arrived last week. This was done, but I have several photographs of the parking, which has been fairly inconsiderate in the last few weeks, causing a bit of concern to 1 or 2 of the residents a bit further along the road of having to actually get in and out of their driveways. However, we've been pleased and grateful that there's been no mud spread off the site onto Meadow Close or Greenbank, because it is particularly muddy now. And we would like to ask that councillors walk along the lower path between Chapel Lane and Policeman's Lane to observe the development, because quite a lot of work's gone on there in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And in the last week, a wall of Gabion cages, 3 high, has been built. And again, they're one on top of the other, rather than what I understand to be the sort of traditional staggering bit. And I think it must be what they've done is put the soakaways behind it, but somebody else would be able to say about that. And as they rise up to the 2nd storey now, bearing in mind they've got another storey and a roof to go, there's been quite a lot of comments going around in the village as people actually realise the bulk of this development. and at the moment there's only 3 of the proposed 4, which were all supposed to be completed by spring 2015, going up. But they're just sort of observations really more than anything else, and the first comments refer to what's coming up on the agenda.
Thank you.
Do you like my piece of paper?
Yes, I would, please.
Not the best handwriting, but legible.
Could do better.
Yes.
I just wondered if there's any more update on the dog stickers, what I inquired about. And
that
if I'll
is-
get a better response than I did last time.
It'll come in Councillor Hannaford's report.
Good.
Julian. I'm going to ask Julian Shapley to speak, please.
Hi, I'm Julian Shapley. I live in Plymouth and work in the parish, and I am interested in going for a golf discount for parish council place. Live in Plymouth with my wife and 3 children, and yeah, I realise it's going to be a bit of a challenge, steep learning curve, but yeah, I've got to put my bit back to the commuter.
Anyone else? Otherwise, I will ask Councillor Hannaford for her report.
Councillors. I'll answer the question about the dog posters. There are 2 types of posters that I'm referring to. One, it's a very graphic picture of some dog poo, Scoop the Poop, which I'm very happy. They're actually available on the Cornwall Council website to download, but I can arrange to have some laminated. Perhaps I can coordinate that through the clerk. So I've used those in Lou and Polperro over the last 2 or 3 years. The ones that we're looking at in Lou are organised by Keep Britain Tidy Group, and they are glow in the dark. So they're designed, and they're called We Are Watching You. So they're designed to remind people, especially in the dark, that of their responsibilities towards their dogs. Now there's a considerable, they're quite costly, those, and the issue of paying for them hasn't yet come before Luton Council. I think it's coming to the Environment meeting, I think it was the 9th of February. So what I could do when it's discussed in Lou, I could say that obviously with your approval, that if you're interested in adding some of the posters, these glow-in-the-dark ones, that they could be ordered at the same time and work with Luton Council. So there's 2. I can do the Scoop the Poop one straight away, but the others, they have to be ordered through the Keep Britain Tidy Group. Whether they're effective, I don't know about the Scoop the Poop, because I put one up on Pennyland, and I found a steaming pile within 2 feet of not only a dog bin but the poster. But the evidence that I've read from other district councils that have used the We Are Watching You, and it is a pair of eyes, has actually shown a 40% decrease in the incidence of fouling. So that's what attracted me to it. So you need to discuss whether you're happy to support the funding of that, and I can supply you with the costing. So
you said they were expensive, but what do you mean? What is the price?
well, I think there's a big package of all the campaign. It's about £1,500, and you get like all the templates for all the press releases and how to go about it. And I can't remember how many posters you get, but you get like 10 A3 and another 30 of the small ones. So they've branded this and they are selling it off to different, but they will sell individual posters, and I think they're about a £5 each. So they're not cheap, but my estimate in Lou is we needed about 10. Certainly the budget I was looking at was about £500 in Lou to cover the whole of Lou. So rather than minuting the exact costs that I've said, because I'm not 100% sure.
No, I haven't done that.
Don't do that. I think, yeah, because I might be misquoting, but they're not like 20p for a photocopy. They are, because they are glow in the dark, they're special. But I'll find out the true costs.
Do they come with a sticky back on? Because years ago they were selling Polaroid at policeman's name, which a resident got over, and they was about the size of a car tax disc with a sticky back on them.
Yeah,
Like
no,
the peel
these
ones?
are A4 or A3. They're waterproof, so they're like laminate, or they're printed on waterproof material. So I guess it's a cable tie. They're not sticky. I don't think they're sticky. I need to forward you the information. Okay, thank you. So it's okay. Yeah, sorry. My report. A few things from Cornwall Council, then a few things that are very local. It's all right. I wondered if members could highlight that elections to the Youth Parliament for Cornwall has actually started today. It's for young people aged between 11 and 18 who are standing for election, and young people vote for them. There's some links on my report which you can forward to members so they can have a look at all the videos from all the people that are standing. Voting starts today, the 26th, and to vote you need a unique voting code which you can get through schools. So it's really just for information, because I felt that was really important to get young people involved in local government and representing their communities, because I think they're very underrepresented at the moment. There is a project for cheaper energy for one and all across Cornwall to cut energy bills. This is a new initiative called Community Energy Switch. The collective switching service has been launched by a Cornwall-based charity called Community Energy Plus. Provides services to help householders reduce their energy use and ensure they can afford to heat their homes. The charity is working with the national switching organisation Energy Helpline to coordinate their collective switch and link into the group buying power of several other collectives taking place across the country. You have to register by the 1st of March, and the estimates of average savings are £221 a year based on the last Energy Helpline collective switch, and there's a link there and a free phone number.
That will actually, information on that is going into the parish magazine which comes out.
You've already got that, sorry.
Yeah, we've got it.
Okay.
Nobody's seen it yet.
Okay, heads up then. It's part of planning communications improvement. I'm embarking on a comprehensive programme of improvements to the planning service. We've set up a customer service team to deal with queries and complaints. So actual planning officers can be freed up to actually determine planning applications. The number of planning applications received annually has doubled since 2012 and it now stands at 14,000 applications submitted annually, and that number is growing. With the cuts to staff across the council, the planning service is not immune, so the new team will free up officers to get on with their jobs. We are currently at the stage of establishing what the key issues with town and parish councils who were consulted at the 3 planning training sessions. There was a survey form, hopefully you filled that in. We've also established that the website could be improved. So we're doing a comprehensive survey on the navigability or the way people use the information on planning on that website. So there's a link to a Survey Monkey internet page there. I'm embarking at the moment on a tour of all the community network areas with senior managers to better understand what the key issues are and to target improvements. We really want to make the service much better, and I know we're not quite getting it right at the moment, but it's a concerted effort. I wanted to highlight to you a website that might be useful to the planning committee called planningjungle.com. There's been lots of changes to permitted development rights in recent months. It's part of Eric Pickle's plan to free up the planning system and make it easier to get planning permission. So there's been quite a lot of changes that I think will be quite controversial. For example, from April last year, you can change an agricultural building to a home without planning permission. You still need to look at sort of the design and the highways issues, but you don't need planning permission. But the Planning Jungle website gives you quite a lot of information there to inform your members when they're considering planning applications. You might have heard in the press quite a bit about the case for Cornwall. It's devolved powers for Cornwall, because sometimes national policies really don't make sense for Cornwall. So the first draft of that case for Cornwall was approved by full council last week, and we're asking for powers and freedoms. Some of these include, and this is really relevant to Lanteglos and Lanteglos next door, addressing the issue of second homes. We want to work with the government to identify a more workable solution to manage the number of second homes and ensure that our communities remain sustainable. We are also looking at asking if we can retain 2 pence on every litre of fuel that's sold in Cornwall from the existing duty that we can use to improve our particularly our rural road network. So it's not an additional tax. We want to keep some of the money so we can improve our road network. And the last one is about, well, there's lots, but one I've picked out is about the rise of home working in Cornwall and some good investment in superfast broadband, but we've only got 95% coverage at the moment. So at full council, at Cabinet last week, we approved a phase 2 of the superfast rollout to try and pick up that 5%, which is about 13,000 homes in Cornwall that don't have access, and to improve the speeds for everyone. This is being, the funding for this is coming partly from the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS, a bit from Cornwall Council, a bit from the Growth Deal, a little bit from the Regional Growth Fund, and a little bit from the EU funding programme, and a bit of private sector money as well. I think Room was activated fairly early on in the process. We've only just got it at Killigarth in Polperro, for example, were only activated last week. So it's a bit mixed across. I think this second phase is really aimed at more rural parts of the parish, so everybody can have the advantage of it. On a local issue, I was going to hopefully have given you a verbal update on the parking arrangements at Hall Terrace, but the officer has not responded to me, which I'm a bit miffed about. And I've also asked for a copy of the actual plans, because I don't think we've actually seen the plans. I don't think they're complicated. I think it's just herringbone fashion. But I think really need to see those. I've also had some comment about parking at Firs Park, investigating land ownership there and the status of the parking area with Highways Manager. Residents are finding it increasingly difficult to park there, and some have marked out their own spaces. Visitors are parking there. It's a bit unclear whether it's Highways or Cornwall Housing, so I'll update members in due course about that. I'm sure it gets. I'm not sure if it's elsewhere on the agenda, but Tom's boatyard application has caused some consternation in some areas. At the moment, the planning officer is concerned about the increase in the roof height of the existing building in front of the terrace area serving number 12, with and this is the planning officer's words, substantial loss of amenity to the area. So at the moment, he feels that the impact is so detrimental that he's recommending the application be refused. He also says he wants to be supportive of to this valuable local business and recognises the important role the business has in supporting the local and the wider community. The applicant needs to respond, this was as of Friday, within 3 working days with their intentions. There are 3 options, possibly a 4th option. 3 options are they can just accept the refusal and appeal and let the planning inspectorate come to a view. I could call it to committee and let's see if committee members take a different view over the loss of amenity, over the economic benefits, or they could come up with a design solution. The fourth option is still being worked on, so I'm not quite sure about that one yet. My advice is perhaps, and this is the planning officer said, a site visit to look at an alternative solution. I think that's probably the best way forward, but there is a 4th one that I'm not really at liberty to say because I don't know the detail of it. So we're trying to find a way that accommodates both Thomas's boatyard but also does not detriment of the owner of number 12. Thank you. I'm very happy to answer any questions that members might have.
Are there any questions for Councillor Hannaford?
Sorry, Edwina, I slightly drifted off when you mentioned the second
Keep up!
I was concentrating on the only one, the second homes discussion. Where have you got to with that?
Well, we're asking, well, there's been some developments on that as well, as far as affordable housing for local people. The government, in their wisdom, have raised the threshold on that affordable housing should be part of any development. At the moment it's 2. They're proposing to raise that to 10, so Bones Meadow would not have had that off-site contribution. We think this is going to be really very, very serious for Cornwall in delivering affordable homes for local people. So I'm mounting a challenge to that. There's also a judicial review that, of all places, West Berkshire and Reading are mounting because they've got the same problem but in a more urban setting. The second homes, what we're asking is for that there be a separate use class for a second home. We had thought with South Lakeland and the Lake District have got a similar problem, that we joined with them to lobby government, but we had a very categoric no, absolutely no. In fact, the comment from the planning minister, Mr. Brandon Lewis, was he thought it was a human right to have a home, which I agree with him, but I don't think it is to have a second home. So this is ongoing. There's use classes we can use. There's all sorts of other things that we've got up our sleeve. So this is ongoing, but it's very strongly represented in the case for Cornwall that it's a real issue for Cornwall. So it's a bit of a little bit of a watch this space.
Thank you very much.
Edwina Thompson's Yard. Has anyone discussed the implications of the workforce and their job situation? Because I believe, I'm led to believe, that it is imperative that they have a bigger shed to build their ever-increasing size of boating. And would this not be detrimental to, and I believe they were taking on apprentices, etc., and more workforce, but if they've no sheds to build it, the vessels in, what is the future of that yard if they come up?
I think that's a very good question, and I'm concerned about that too. And to be fair, the planning officer did take that into consideration, but thought the harm to the amenity of number 12 was so severe, unless the design was amended, that he couldn't give it approval. They've got grant funding, I think, approved for doing the works. They certainly have on their books, I think, at Thames Barge. So there are this is a really tricky one, and this is why it's very difficult, the planning system butting up and getting the balance right. But I'm hopeful that we can find a compromise to that, because the planning officer wants to approve it, but finds that, in his opinion, and it is an opinion, they can still challenge that. A planning inspector might have a different opinion. A planning committee may have a different opinion, but I think the best way is to find a compromise that allows them to have that height that they need to undertake the contracts and the employment and expand, but that it wouldn't be to the detriment of number 12. So I emailed Andrew Thomas, the architect, yesterday. He was out of office today, he's away, but I did have a comment from, an email back from his assistant or whoever saying that they are working on something.
So I believe that number 12 haven't been lived in for approximately 14 years?
I'm afraid that's not a planning consideration. If it's a home, they could sell it tomorrow to somebody and somebody else could come and live in it. So although that's true what you say, it means that house has been there a long time, and it will be a long time in the future, probably way past the current owner's lifetime. So that's what they're looking at. It's not about view. It's not an issue of view, and you're not entitled to a view. That's not a material consideration. It's the scale, bulk, bigness of it in your... It faces north, so it's not blocking sunlight, because it doesn't get any. It's just overbearing feeling of in the only amenity space attached to that property. I'm confident we'll find a compromise, because we have to.
You know, at the end of the day, it's better to see this port alive and people working in it than a village full of second homes with nobody here.
With respect, that's your opinion. In the opinion of the professional planning officer, he has weighed that up and he feels it's, I think the word to use, severe.
I think we need to move on here because everybody has a question.
Carrying on with the boat card, they had 3 days to reply to the planning inspector. But what are the time constraints now with the yard? Because if they say, right, let's go to planning committee, when's the next planning committee meet?
Right, they've requested an extension of time, although it said 3 days. I think he was going to allow them time to come up with a revised plan that would overcome the issues that the planning officer has. So I know where you're heading, is that their grants and their contracts may be time dependent. That's why I think it's better to find the compromise so that the officer can approve it without it having to go. Appeal would be 6 weeks or 2 months, you know, committee, probably get another. That's not the ideal situation. So for my mind, Chairman, the best course of action is to find a compromise.
Thank you. Item 4, which is the casual vacancy for a council or a councillor to be co-opted. You've already heard councillors Mr. Julian Shapley speak. Could I have a proposal, please?
I'll propose it.
Thank you. And a seconder? Show of hands, please. Co-opted unanimously. Julian, if you can sign your acceptance of office, you can join us. Right, we're now moving on to planning matters. We need first to consider and ratify the planning applications considered by the planning committee at their meeting on the 5th of January. We didn't hold the one on the 26th of January because there weren't enough of us to make a quorum, so we are going to consider those here. Right, the 2 that we looked at on the 6th of January were Chayakara in Badinnick, where we resolved to recommend approval. proposer for that, please? Thank you. Thank you. Show of hands, please. Thank you. Yes, that one's okay. And then the second one, Vic, and you have to leave the room. Is 1 East Helen Road. This is dormers in the roof. Councillor Truman did leave the meeting when we were talking about this, and he's left it again tonight. It was resolved that we recommended approval. Do I have a proposer for approval, please? Adrian? Toby? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Right. Now, this is where I have to bring in
Yes, the three.
yeah, the three.
Oh, yes. Tradugwell, is that what
Yeah,
it's called?
yes, it's Tradugwell Manor.
Where's listed building?
Yeah.
Take back.
Hmm?
Should we get Vic back?
Yeah, we can get him back and somebody get him in, please.
Hang on.
Thank you. Right, what we're looking at here is there are two applications here. One because it's the removal of an existing greenhouse and erection of building to house a wedding venue and function with a car park and visibility display. The next one is connected with it. Would you take this, Kevin?
Yes, I was going to say, but first of all, observing this, right, is there any applicant who wants to speak or objector who wants to speak before we deal with it? No, thank you. You've got plans and details of the application for Tradugwell Manor. It's removal of existing greenhouse, erection of building to house to provide a wedding room and function hall and an associated car park and visibility display. And going with that obviously is the simultaneous application for this building consent. I looked on the website, there's no objection to the moment, it's set well back from the road. It's in an area of outstanding national beauty, it's a heritage coast, and it's a listed building, grade 2 building. The only thing you have found is that there is a reservation on behalf of the Environment Agency who want to see a proper septic tank installed, and they've advised that they shouldn't go ahead with it until that's done. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be any objection to it. Any comments?
I don't see any problem with it really. Where it is, you can't see it from the road anyway. It's all overgrown, it's in behind the house. Julie is doing quite a bit, Justin's doing quite a bit in the area, and he's promoted the house. It's been done up beautifully. And you go around the back and there's a bit of a nice sort of little greenhouse. But I think we should,
promote a little business.
Exactly. I mean, it's a lovely place. Get a chance to walk around. It's lovely in the hotel.
Yes, it is.
So I think we should support it.
I think we have a proposal.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Show of hands, please. Right, that's carried.
That's an unlisted building.
Yeah, and we also have to approve, because this is a development attached to a listed building.
Yeah.
So do I have a proposer, please, for that? Adrian?
Yes,
Toby?
okay.
Show of hands, please. Right, the next one is Wherry Place, 9 School Lane, Polruan, and it's to do with a walnut tree. To fell it as it's growing inches from the boundary fence, resulting in significant growth and shade extending across the garden of number 10. Damage to the boundary fence and or tree trunk in strong winds as the trunk rubs on the fence. Also, the tree is growing under a telephone service line. Plan to replace with a smaller tree or shrub better suited to the position. We have no plans for this one, but it could be viewed online, so this is obviously a delicate tree.
Actually, if you looked at it online, there was that information we've got down here, so I think where our learning clerk managed to get all that from.
In a covering letter.
Oh, right, thank you.
Do we have any thoughts on this, please?
It's obviously a nuisance where it's too, so it needs to be dealt with. simple one,
It's a
sorry.
pity because it's a slow growing thing, isn't it? It's something that you
It's-
plant for your grandchildren and enjoy.
By the time it gets to your grandchildren, it's too big and needs to come.
To the point, yeah.
Right, I think we have a proposal there. Do we have a seconder, please?
Yes, yes.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Show of hands, please. Right. Then you will notice in the agenda that we have had a reply from Ascent Building Control. These are the building regulations people, private company who are concerned with Bones Meadow. He advises their records are not for public viewing. This would be a breach of their appointment with the developer. Any concern should be taken up with the developer.
Haven't we tried to?
We
Take it up with the
ask,
developer?
what people who are concerned should do is take it up with the developer. He can't divulge that information because it would be a breach of contract.
Just to, sorry, just to interrupt. In fact, if you remember, just dealing with Bones Meadow while we're there, remember at the last meeting we went through the planning conditions one by one, and I have written and pointed out the ones that we don't think they comply with, but I haven't got a response yet.
Thank you. But we hear from him that there is a slight improvement in that the parking isn't quite so faultless as it might have been. Right, we're coming to planning law training, and not salt bins. Once the road is adopted, are the parish council happy to accept liability for the 2 salt bins that are on there and the refilling of these as necessary? If we don't, they will take them away.
Which salt?
Which road is it?
Which
road is it?
I think it's on the site. It's on this site at the moment.
What site? That's the
On
thing.
Bones
Well,
Meadow.
right at Bones Meadow.
They haven't got a road on that site.
No,
No,
It's not inside the fences.
Wait a minute, let me find
Yes,
the email.
Adrian?
we don't have 2 salt bins
No.
there.
Because it's asking about 2 salt bins specifically, I think it would come under Kendall Park because that is to be adopted imminently. Obviously, a developer builds the estate, the road remains the developer's land, and then Cornwall Council adopt it. So I think that's
Shall I
what
read the email? It says the site off Greenbank Pond Road near the fire station is now very close to adoption. Within this site there are 2 road salt bins.
Well, that would be Kendall Park then, is the answer. And the answer to that is they were put there by Sanctuary and they're refilled by Sanctuary, so I propose we don't take any further action.
He says he's been contacted by Adrian Drake, the highway manager east for Cormac, who's asked him to contact me to ask for your confirmation that the parish council are happy to accept these, and if the alternative will be their removal.
But they were positioned there by Sanctuary Housing and the salt in them is placed there by the maintenance man.
I think we better clarify this.
Sorry, it's Sanctuary, it's still a private road, isn't it?
But Sanctuary Housing maintains it now, not the developer.
No. Can I comment quickly?
Once the road is adopted by Cornwall Highways, the road becomes maintainable as public highway. Because the policy of Cornwall Council is not to have salt bins, and they won't replenish them unless the parish council does, Sanctuary will cease to have responsibility once it becomes adopted highways. That's why they'll be removed. You could ask Sanctuary if they would continue.
Just move them to the side so they're off the highway.
They-
If they're on the private bit of parking.
Exactly. They may not know that letter,
Yeah.
so I would reaffirm it was Sanctuary.
Thank you. Kevin, do you want to say anything about planning law training?
Yeah, I've had to defer that unfortunately. I just haven't had time to prepare it properly. And as it turns out, it's quite fortuitous because I had actually seen the Planning Jungle website, but and I thought it would be useful to research it for part of the training, but I haven't had time to do it. So it's not all lost. What I need to do is to fix a new date, but I've got a little more time to do it, which I will try to do sometime in February.
Thank you. Right, the next one is 4 Werry Place. Ms Sarah Page, Cornwall Council Enforcement Officer, advised the site has been inspected and the demolished wall in a conservation area researched. It is considered that the alleged breach constitutes permitted development and did not require planning permission. The wall was under a metre high and is not subject to protection under the conservation area, so that is now closed. Planning applications approved. 1 Bars Close, Old Road, Verdinick. Proposed extension and remodelling of existing dwelling. We supported this application. The Lugger Inn, 4 Street, Polruan, conversion of the existing garage into a food preparation area, including the removal of the garage door with filling of stone wall and 2 windows to match existing, and the removal of an internal wall in the kitchen. Members supported this application as it would considerably improve the look of the building. Thank you. Item 6, we're going into environmental amenity matters. A is the key public conveniences. There is a report somewhere in the room on where we have got to. That is, it's actually an email string. We are waiting for Stephen Foster to come back with a note. When we've got that, we've got something to talk about. And it included getting some information out of South West Water. Moving on to the War Memorial Committee. John, can you tell me whether the War Memorial Committee has met?
We have met.
You have not met, so there's nothing to update.
Nothing to update, and there's no proposed date either.
Could you take that back to them, please? Because I know that you informally told me that there are no more names to go on to the memorial, as far as we know. And you've already researched that.
Yeah, I've checked everybody. There's never been any new names added all my lifetime.
Right, thank you for that. And nobody was missed off right at the beginning?
Not as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
No complaints.
Right. Key lighting, Kevin.
Yeah. We had a visit from Dave Swiggs, who's the wastewater asset manager, on the 6th of January. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But before he came, I did discuss basically what was required and the problems that we've been experiencing. He sounded fairly sympathetic, and he has been and taken photographs and is preparing a report available by the end of the month. I've tried to contact him about 3 times to see if he could tell me in advance what he's got in mind, but I haven't been able to pin him down. He did say in the earlier conversation that South West Water, he thought, and this must be purely speculation, that they might be prepared to accept responsibility for the clock as well. So I think we watch this space and see how we get on with it. I'll certainly have a report for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to the neighbourhood development plan. Kevin, you again, please.
Yeah. This is where we're making quite good progress on this. John's done a lot of work on getting, as following the last public meeting, on getting the necessary plans and putting them onto a pen drive, isn't it, John? And we've had a run through, but we didn't really feel it was quite slick enough for public presentation yet. It needs a little bit more refinement by way of spending a bit more time on it for a PowerPoint presentation is what we're looking for. So give us a week or two, and we need to obviously allow, once we've got it together, and we also actually haven't had yet an update from Bernie. If you remember, he was doing revised information on the drainage. I think he gave a presentation or a report at the last meeting. So I think we need to incorporate that. I'm just wondering whether it's better to defer it until we know what's going on with the 106 money from Bones as well. But bearing in mind that we are getting a bit behind, I think it might be better if we fix the date as soon as we can. Probably about, what do you think, John, about 3 weeks' time? Allow at least a week's for notification.
That's right.
Find a bit of time this week to
to polish it.
Polish our act. Yeah.
So we don't give a speech full of ums and ahs and...
No, there's nothing worse than going to the presentation when people say, oh, but just get the technical side to work, because it drives me mad personally, I don't think anybody else. So we'll come back to you with the data as soon as possible.
This is the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Fowey news with the Fowey Parish neighbourhood plan?
No, I haven't.
Thing,
No, you really haven't.
With consultations and everything. I'll leave it here for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, good, because I had a copy, but they haven't put that in it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I mean, that's just a...
Could I just say in summary, I mean, from what we've looked at, there's very little scope for development within the parish. So, we'll see.
Thank you. Right, we're moving on to the telephone box. This is the one at the Dinnick, and we wanted to start looking into the business of, we are going to buy the box for £1, and it's looking at it as possible housing for a defibrillator, because this was something that Liz Jolliffe, Councillor Jolliffe, had been working on. I think we need to take that a bit further, because yes, a defibrillator in particular would be wonderful, but we know whether people live in or ruin. So I think we need to do rather more research into this. Kevin, can you update us on this?
Yes, I had a very helpful conversation with David Hill yesterday and today, actually, suggesting possible contacts for grants. I think we agreed between us that we put him in touch or get Liz to contact him as soon as she's back, as she being the lead member for this. But he was very helpful. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Anything to report on Frogmore toilets, please? No, we have
the loos. Sorry.
National Trust.
Weigh yourself out. Yes, I got in touch with the National Trust before Christmas. David Laws, who was our area representative officer, I don't know, surveyor, has moved on. And we've got a new lady called Verity Bedinnick, who emailed me and promised to contact me after Christmas. I've learned that she's absolutely been not particularly well since Christmas, and I'm waiting for her to come back and contact us. But I hope, I said, before she contacts me, if she could give me the potential heads of agreement, which I hope to have if she's back and fit in time for the next meeting.
Thank you.
I have to board up the me. Might board up the me, she's useless.
Oh, no, we're not supposed to socialise like that. No, please don't. Don't minute that. Right. Anything else? So we're just waiting. Right. The public rights of way map has returned. Where is it? Oh, there. Right. Okay. Thank you. We're now coming to Fowey Harbour Commission. This is Penmarlem. There was a meeting with the harbour master and residents to actually update people on what was happening there. The first I knew about it was getting a rather aggrieved telephone call, 2 of them. We didn't know what was happening, and the residents didn't either. That was a breakdown in communication, because if you look at the minutes, that was discussed in the November meeting of the Fowey, the Port Harbour Users Group. That we didn't know about it is it's accidental, and it shouldn't have happened. We met, we saw where they were proposing to put the building. Because of comments that were made on that day by people who were there, this is why there is now an amended proposal to put it on the other side of the road, slightly lower down, just below Penmarlem Quay Cottage. And I know now that it's because there was a muddle between who was supposed to be representing both the parish council and the Mixto residents on that particular group. So not having been at the meeting, they didn't get the minutes. I've only just got those minutes. And that's because I've spoken to the harbour master and said, you know, in the interest of good communication, so that we do know what's going on, this is what will happen in future. You've all now seen those minutes. The other thing that we missed because of that was a consultation on applications from harbour authorities applying to be designated with power under S40A of the Harbours Act 1964. This was also discussed at that meeting in November. I have spoken to Caroline Wall, who is in charge of this, and I got a dispensation because the comments were supposed to be in by about a week ago. I can get these to her by email tomorrow. What we're looking at here, if you've had managed to look at this document, because I gave you the link to that, and it's being, there's a whole list of other ports which are also applying for this as well. What has happened is that under the Port Marine Safety Code, the commissioners, they've carried out a review of their existing statutory powers with the assistance of their legal advisors. The review has confirmed that the commissioners do not have powers of general direction. What this is to do with is how shipping and shipping movements and moorings and various other things are handled and directed in the harbour. And the Port Marine Safety Code has advised that harbour authorities will be well advised to secure powers of general direction to support the effective management of vessels in their harbour waters if they do not already have them. So there is a strong move from central government that harbours, and there's a list of them on the website, should secure those powers in order that they can manage things more safely within their jurisdiction. At the meeting in November of the Port Users Group, they approved this unanimously. I need to know from you, councillors, whether you would support this, because I need to get this back tomorrow.
Well, having read the document, I think it's necessary. The harbour authorities are able to act far more swiftly and according to the conditions in the harbour, without getting overridden by bigger powers who've got one rule fits everything.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we have a proposal there. Is there a second? Yeah. So we've got Toby, show of hands, please. So I will email, so if I email Caroline, and I will do that. Thank you. Right. The other thing we need to look at here.
Can we go?
Yes. Yes.
At our meeting, and the lady concerned just now, I think everybody is under the assumption that Jimmy Marine is actually moving in there as Jimmy Marine. But if they listened to Paul's comments at the meeting, and our meeting, he was bringing his expertise to Penmarlin. He was then becoming an employee of Fowey Harbour Commissioners, not as Jimmy Marine. So he would be employed by Fowey Harbour Commissioners along with two other persons, not as Jimmy Marine itself. So everybody thinks it's going to be Jimmy Marine. It's not. Fowey Harbour Commissioners are going to run it and employ them. So just to make it clear that it's not Jimmy Marine going in there.
Thank you. Right, now the next thing comes to the Port Users Group itself. We have one of the councillors who is not here tonight as representative on that particular group. Because I want to avoid any breaks in communication so that we do know what is going on in plenty of time, I am proposing that we elect a substitute or a second representative to that group. It does not mean that both go at the same time. It means that if one isn't there, then the second one would be there. I have proposed that.
Andrew and I have spoken about this, and we think that maybe, if the council agrees, that at a very short notice sometimes he can't make the meetings. So he might be caught up, whatever the case may be, in work, to me being in the village, if it's acceptable to the council, I would be prepared to stand in. We liaise and see each other most days of the week, and at a very short notice, normally 24/7, I'm in the village and could attend.
Thank you for that. So what we have then is, I take it, that
A volunteer.
we've got a volunteer here. So we are proposing that we have a second or a substitute. Vic has actually proposed, has volunteered to do that for very practical reasons.
I'll say I'll propose it.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Right, show of hands. So that's yeah, thank you very much. Okay. And I have to say that in terms of communication, we will now get, the clerk will have separate agendas and minutes. They have the address, but I don't think they ever used it, so there are things that have got to be improved there. One of the things that is clear in that document is that there needs to be a port users group, which is actually quite a strong body, and it's not exactly monitoring, but it's having a strong view on what happens in the port. It's only with two-way communication that the harbour authority knows what its stakeholders are thinking and what they think should be happening in the harbour. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and the other bit is it's very handy to have the minutes of those meetings to all councillors.
You've got that?
Yeah, I said, you know, that's
In
one useful
in future,
that
they will
will
be.
future.
Yeah, yeah, that can just go in, they will automatically go out to everybody. Thank you. There is, moving on, the bus shelter at Badinnick. Now the update is regarding emergency repairs. Vic, can you fill us in on this, please, what happened here?
After a contact by Julie, I did write back to say that I had contacted a builder. He had gone down to make sure everything had been made safe. This is the second time I believe the sheets come off the roof, so these sheets intend to get brittle after a time, and it's just a waste of time putting them back, as you know, they'll only blow off again or break. What I have asked that particular person to come back with is a quote to replace it with a one-piece polycarbonate sheet. So there's just a one piece on there instead of a numerous sheets. I've asked one so far. I will go to Kevin and some of the other builders now and ask them to quote for the same.
But the site is safe there, isn't it?
Yes.
Sorry?
The site is made safe.
Yeah. So I can ask, you know, 2 or 3 of the local boys now and get them to quote for it as well.
Yeah, so
But if you contact Kevin and if he contacts me or whatever, I could give him a, you know, a special occasion to work to. It's cheaper in the long run to put a one piece up than mess around with what they've got there now.
Thank you. Right. We're moving on to item 7, administrative matters.
Can I just mention here a temporary footpath closure? Footpath 7 has been closed between, oh that's not much help, is it? A wall has collapsed somewhere?
Oh, this is that the Hall Walk extension?
Yes, it is.
I just gave good references instead of talking to the... Carry on, I'll find out and tell you what it's
Thank you.
like.
All right, well, we will come back to that one. Standing orders. Members to consider an amendment to Standing Order 1D. Kevin?
Yeah, this is going back to the point which we raised right at the beginning. When we changed the rights for members to speak, we certainly intended to change it so that they could speak on any matter at the beginning of the meeting. But it appears that we haven't actually amended standing orders to give effect to that. So I think what we need to do, if Julian's got my attention, I'm looking until she stops talking.
I'm literally listening with half an ear.
All right.
Do you know where it is?
Yeah.
What did that mean? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, that would be new.
I think all we need to do is just to accept, is formally to propose that Standing Order 1 D is amended to include any topic of relevance. Is that right, Jenny?
Yes.
That's what we intended to do in the first place. And we have included the other point that was raised earlier on about applicants and objectors and members of the public speaking at the time the council considers their planning applications right at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you.
I thought we did that.
I think we did. I know I did.
We adopted the practice, but we may not put it in writing.
Right, so this is what we're now doing.
Yes.
Right, so you're proposing that.
Formal proposition.
Thank you. Seconder, please. And show of hands, please. Thank you. Right. Where are we on this footpath? Show. So where is it?
I don't know where this is.
Can somebody else?
Well, this is
please?
Chapel Lane here.
Yeah.
Chapel Lane, that's the same old footpath.
Well, no, somebody have a look and then, it's behind Spring Hall.
Yeah, it's the same footpath, same place.
So it's extending it, isn't it? It was supposed to have been
Everyone's climbing over
to
it.
January, so
Okay.
right, thank you. Right, and the last item under 7 is a car parking consultation which can be viewed on.
Oh, sorry, there's one more part, just reports.
Do we need to actually consider that one? Because you say it's
Yes.
already in our minutes.
Yes, you did it in November and I've completely forgotten. So you have already agreed to make reports.
So
made.
any sort of written reports that we've got before the meeting that we can make available to members of the public, and,
Yes.
and we're also, I think, having copies of the agenda and minutes once available.
Yes.
On the assumption not everybody has access to the internet.
If you want to be really particular with open reports, there is a space for it on the website.
I just said not everybody has access to the website.
Well, there is a special heading reports. We'll put it on there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right, the car parking consultation can be viewed on www.cornwall.gov.uk/traffic consult. There was a date on that one.
30th. 30th.
30th, thank you. Right. We're now coming to item 8, which is financial matters. And we have accounts for payment, which you should have in
I'll
front of.
pass that to Julie and then Toby, because they haven't
Yeah.
Dispensation for the case, so I've got that.
We've had our, what did I sign that for?
Village Hall, that's
Back of your financial interest.
I'll leave it to the whole thing and then.
Oh, I did send it to you. I thought I put the form to you.
I've seen it when I did sit in the office, but I haven't had chances.
income. We have
You need to sign
received a cheque for £1,250 from the Town Trust. This is towards the running costs of the key toilets, and we thank them very much for that. Could you?
I'm just going to sign.
Yeah. We have payment details. HMRC, £115.20. Mrs Thompson's salary, £623.63. Hire of Polro and WI, £60. Admin, stationery stamps, £156.54 plus £7.38 VAT, that comes to £163.92. Mrs Thompson expenses, £128.78. EDF Energy, parish lighting, £196.26 plus £9.80, £206.06. Framgarten Extreme Clean, £840 for January. SSE Contracting Limited, parish lighting, £28.01 plus £5.60 VAT, £33.61.
What's the WI whole hire, how long is that for? That's more than just a month, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's a whole.
Yeah, okay.
And you will see that the bank reconciliation is successfully completed up to including statement number 1/2014.
I haven't been able to do, I haven't received a bank statement for
Okay.
the other accounts, the Barclays account.
Yeah. Now, we are in a position where we can close the Santander account, can't we?
If you were sure that you had a stamp out direct debit with 5 sessions,
Yeah.
Isabel, 5 sessions.
Yeah, 5 sessions.
We're in a position where we think we can now, we're pretty sure that we can close down the Santander account. I would like to say that we wait until we have the Barclays statement before we do that, so we know exactly what they are doing and what they have done. Could I have, that's what I'm proposing, can I have a second to that, please? To close down the Santander account, but not just yet until we have the Barclays statement. Yes, thank you. Right. So in fact we defer that.
Well, you can agree.
We can agree it and then right. Right, what else? Oh, the budget monitor.
Are you going to take us through this? Well, it's nothing much different from the last one, so let me get there. Right, I have made some adjustments to your income because most of it is in by now. The footpath maintenance grant hasn't been claimed, and I do have a query on that. There's a grant available of £1,208, but we haven't spent anything like that amount. So I was going to go through the old paperwork and see if something had been misposted, but so I haven't been able to submit the claim for that because we haven't, or don't appear to have paid for the work. So I need to do a bit of investigation on that, but I really noticed it today. Website advertising income is down, so I wouldn't think we're going to get any more now because it's nearly the next year. And the town trust has given a grant of 1,250, I believe.
Yeah.
Not the and I know there's an explanation why it's not the original amount. The grants, you've overspent on those so far for the Lanteglos PCC. I think it was something to do with the War Memorial, or
Yes.
so that's your maintenance is on target. I don't see any problems with that at all. The administration, the office expenses, I think will be more than you had budgeted for, but that includes set-up costs and other various things. What else is there? The rest, I think, is on track. I don't see anything shaking out at me there, so your budget is working well, and I project you will have a balance at the end of the year of £10,042, although I appreciate that will change.
Thank you. Any questions of Julian, please? Any comments on that?
What does he look at me?
I expect trouble.
The only thing you were saying about maintenance in the past, would that be due to, our, one resigning, one not doing, and
I don't know until I look at the paperwork to make sure.
would that might have been,
Oh, right.
some of the explanation where
I didn't realise that had happened. I haven't heard
We
of
didn't
that.
appoint anyone to do the paths.
We had 3 months where we didn't have anybody
Yeah,
supposed to cut them.
Oh, right.
Then Ian just found a contractor and just did it on a
Pay-as-you-go job.
yes.
Oh, right. So,
so there might be a discrepancy.
yeah, so it's quite possible then you won't get all of your grants because you simply haven't done the work, as I said. But I will double check.
Yeah, does that affect the next grant available? Or?
I sincerely hope not. Oh no, it doesn't, because as luck would have it, further down the agenda in a minute, I'm going to ask about some. Wait a minute, let me get there. Carry on. When we get there, I'll
When
do
is this
that.
contract due?
All the footpaths were cut.
They were all cut. Well, let me look at the accounts and then I'll brief them out for next time. Right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right, no, that's fine.
Thank you, Gillian, for that. Next one is the Lanteglos Parish News. Kevin, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Francis, Councillor Adams and myself met with John Nuttall-Smith, editor of the Lanteglos Parish News, because they had asked us for a grant towards their production costs. He had set out for us what this actually costs. For 6 years from August 2008, the Parish Council published a 2-page newsletter which was inserted into the parish magazine at a cost of £690 per annum for 6 issues. This didn't produce revenue for the parish news. The cost of the council covered what Pegasus were charging for printing and inserting. In June last year, the parish magazine agreed to place the parish council news in each issue, replacing the former newsletter, saving the council £690 per annum. But publishing the council chairman's report and planning notices takes the best part of 2 pages in each issue. The cost of a full-page advertisement is £350 for 6 consecutive issues. The magazine is entirely funded by revenue from its advertisers, and that was their reason for requesting us to consider a grant towards production costs. Adrian, would you like to take this that we discussed about the web?
About the web?
Yes, yeah, the edition that goes onto the web.
I'd add what?
Yeah, because no, what we had pointed out that a web edition is of the parish news actually goes onto the parish council website. That is not as straightforward as it might seem, and I think John's saying that he had to do a considerable amount of work to get it into a format where it could be uploaded.
Yes, he did. Because it has to go to the our website administrator to be loaded. I was thinking about that afterwards, or perhaps I might ask him, I might email him and ask him how he does it, because it's a huge file and I don't understand how he gets it so big.
Really?
I think, but they might, But that said, Western Web put it on our website. Western Web don't charge us for their service. We're not charging the parish news for their service, but then for some it's a convenient place to get hold of it.
Thank you. We discussed all this, and what we proposed, that group, is that we would bring to you a proposal to make a grant of £700 towards the costs or the production costs of the parish magazine.
Will this be annual?
Yes,
For
but
consideration.
yeah, because we want to review that at the end of 2015 in December, so it will be up for review. Have I got that right?
Version, not the
Yes.
web.
This is the printed version.
Just carry on to go on the website as it is.
Adrian was there. John, you were there. No, you weren't. Yes, you were. Yeah. So,
Is that within our budget?
yeah, we've actually got it in the budget. Yes.
So you happy with the figure we discussed in the budget?
Yeah, that was the figure we discussed in the
Yeah,
budget.
I thought you wanted more to start with, didn't you?
They were very happy with the figure.
They are
we
very
offered.
happy.
All right.
with it.
It's an important and,
Yeah, it's all
and,
part of
re-
it.
and reliable form of news for the parish.
Yes.
So I
Better
think
than
it's
some. He was very old as well. If it's basically, if we pay too much this year and they've got, they are going to be flexible to a point where they're to, make sure it doesn't go under, isn't it? It's to, but equally we've said we need to make better use of it and make sure we are advertising and getting all the right information out that we should be. It's a good resource for the parish council, and if we're paying for it, we best make sure we use it to our full potential.
Right. So there is a proposal that we make a grant of £700. Kevin, Toby, show of hands. Carried. Thank you.
Right, in answer to the question, our grant this year is the same as last, £1,208, and I'd like a resolution, please, that you agree to accept that. That's to maintain the footpaths.
Yeah, I'll propose it.
And so, before the next meeting, one of us will draft out adverts and draw up tender packs for the plough and the grass cutting contract. I'll put that to the next meeting.
Right. That was a proposal from Gillian.
Are there two signatures on this, on these cheques?
No, not yet, it's only one.
Oh, it's me.
Don't let me go without friends, will you?
Right. Coming back to, where were we?
Clerk's training.
No, we're not there yet. It's, Gillian, you just made a proposal about accepting the grant.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I didn't make a proposal.
No, well, we're proposing. Gillian has suggested that we do that. So I propose a please and a seconder for that. Yeah, we did. Oh, right. Now, we're coming on to E, which is the clerk's training. But before I go any further, I would like to introduce two residents. Lynette Philp, who we've appointed as our new permanent clerk. Lynette is local, comes from Polperro, and is very keen to come and work with us and be part of the team. But what we are now putting in place, and you can see on the agenda, is a series of training sessions, and those are costed out there. Because we do need to fund the clerk's training. And this is with Gillian's advice, that the following courses have been identified, but others may be considered appropriate. So there's the CILCA 2013 syllabus, 2 by 6 hour sessions, 20th of February and 30th of March, at a cost of £225 plus VAT and travel expenses. Do you want to do these individually, or are we going to do them all?
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on there, yeah. So there's minute taking, there is annual meetings, and there is the Cornwall Association of Local Councils Audit and Finance Conference in April. The cost of those, there was 225 plus VAT, 65 plus VAT, 18 plus VAT, and £35 plus VAT and expenses. Do I have a proposal for that, please? Thank you, Adrian. Show of hands, please.
Yeah, actually, as Isabel said, it's travel as well.
Yeah.
And the travel. Yeah, I did say
Oh, did you?
expenses.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's plenty in the budget for everyone anyway.
And they're all recommended by you, Gillian, are they those?
Yes.
Thank you.
I said that very eagerly, didn't I? I'd like you all to what am I trying to say here? Give authority to the chair and the vice chair if there's another course identified, to give her permission to go on it, because this seems to be training season. I wouldn't like her to miss out.
Do they come up at short notice?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, why not?
Right, that sounded like a proposer and a seconder down there. Can we have a show of hands, please?
I don't
Thank
have
you.
the budget.
Advise within budget, yeah.
Thank you. The other bit is for information. Barclays in Fowey are now going to be open on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays only from the 20th of April. Right. Now, we're coming on to item 9, which is correspondence and documents not covered elsewhere on the agenda. We had 2 letters from Dr. Simon Clark. The substance of these is he's asking about the parish council's expenditure, which cannot be answered because of a legal confidentiality clause. Expressing concern about the change to standing orders, which we have dealt with today, and expressing concern about the lack of transparency, specifically that reports are not made available to the public, and we have dealt with that also today. Gillian wrote to Professor Dr. Clark and set out these in more detail. He had asked for these to be read out in public. I can tell you that Mrs. Thompson timed these. They would have been over 3 minutes each. That actually adds unnecessarily to the length of the meeting. And as it was possible to deal with these by correspondence, that is what we have done. There is one thing, Kevin.
Yeah, I can go into a little more detail on the expenses issue. There were two items. One relates to legal costs, and the other relates to a payment made to a member of the council. The payment made to the member of council was Adrian, and briefly, he originally had a contract for 3 years for footpath maintenance. He had a probationary year with that. At the end of his first year, he was paid, his work was satisfactory, but an item appeared on the agenda for F&GP suggesting it should be put out to tender again. Adrian hadn't been informed of that and went off and got legal advice. The council resolved to put it out to tender, but asked that the clerk at the time should get legal advice on the claim that they had from Adrian's advisors before reletting it. The clerk didn't get legal advice, relet the contract. Adrian sued the council for breach of contract. We got independent legal advice. The legal advice said we hadn't got a defence, so we mediated it through form of mediation through the court, and the settlement sum of £3,000 was agreed. So that was the simple answer to that one. Had circumstances been different, we would have sought an indemnity from the then clerk, but given the circumstances we had, we couldn't do so. The other legal expenses are in relation to an industrial employment case. Following his dismissal, the former clerk, at the end of the disciplinary process, brought a claim for unfair dismissal against the council. That processed to a certain point, and we then had a negotiation through ACAS, at which a settlement was reached and a payment made to the clerk. The clerk himself expressed complete satisfaction with the settlement of the case, and both parties signed what's called a Form COT3, which is a confidentiality agreement. Effectively what that says is the parties agree that they will keep the fact and detail of the CO23 agreement confidential, including specifically the amount of payment, etc., etc. So the council has been honouring that and cannot, for legal reasons, unless the former clerk waives his right to confidentiality, reveal what took place. And that's really more for the benefit of the former clerk than for the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We have received a copy of the Peninsula Community Health newsletter. Clerks and Councils Direct. Where did that go, Julian? It's in the file. Posh Porn. A poster advertising a new TV programme, members to circulate as appropriate. Where is it? It's in here. And it's PAWN. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Now, I am going to admit here we have a letter from Savills. It was too late to get onto the agenda, and it's actually a pre-consultation for a proposed upgrade to an existing site at Hall Farm, Badinnick. And it's Vodafone has entered into an agreement with Telefonica UK Limited, because the two companies plan to jointly operate and manage a single network grid across the UK. They are in Vodafone Limited is in the process of upgrading an existing site as located above. This is at Hall Farm at Badinnick. The purpose of this letter is to consult with you and seek your views on our proposal before proceeding with the works. As part of their continued network improvement programme, there is a specific requirement for a radio base station at this location to provide new 3G and 4G coverage in the area. Mobiles will only work with a network of these base stations. If we haven't got mobile phones and other devices we rely on, simply won't work. So, in order to do that, they want to remove the existing monopole with 3 antennae and install a 12.5 metre T-range monopole with 6 antennae and a 1.6 metre dish. Or is that 10? Can't be 10.
That's
1.6 metre dish plus ancillary equipment. So it's an upgrade of something that is already in existence. No alternative sites have been considered because the site selected accords with all local plan policies and those set out. The local planning authority, Mass Register and our records of other potential sites have already been reviewed. Policies in the development plan have been taken into account and the planning history of the site has been examined. Do we have any comments on this, please?
Do we need to comment now, or will it come through as a planning application?
They'll just do it, won't they?
Yeah, but I don't think in the planning application we can say
Basically,
That's sort of like fast track.
Yeah. So,
Definitely need it, all for it.
I would say, because I am on Vodafone and I get a signal at home, I don't down at Badinnick, I don't down in Poland, the only place I can get one is halfway across the ferry on the river. Anything which is going to improve that, I think we would want to support.
Should have orange
Well,
down
if we want our
there.
Vodafone to step
Can change
up.
network, but
Or out at sea even. So,
And the whole farm is in a field that's quite far away.
yes it is, yeah. So, are we, so our comments are, as Toby said,
Yeah, please carry on.
yeah, we support this. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Well, at least you won't get banned from the ferry in this time for support then.
Right.
Certain councillor was.
Right, we're coming on to diary dates. There is a report of the Liscard and Lou Community Network panel I attended. The next one is Wednesday the 29th of April in East Taphouse Village Hall. I have put 2 parts of that report into the parish magazine. Call for Change. This is the group of like-minded parishes and individuals held at Chasewater back in September, and the meeting at Camelford a couple of weeks ago. They are holding another meeting at Kingsley Village, Fratton on Wednesday the 11th of February at 7 p.m. What their constitutional aims are to campaign for Cornwall Council and its officers, local and national politicians, to conduct a level of democratic governance at all levels which practice and upholds localism, accountability and transparency that protects Cornwall's people, communities, image, heritage, culture, growth and financial well-being. So that is an open invitation for us to attend that meeting on the 11th of February.
I think I'll be busy.
Thank you. Right, you've all got a copy of this, I think Julia did send it round. From you? Okay, so could you circulate that, please? The Cornwall Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty Annual Conference is on Saturday the 7th of March, 10 to 4 at the Pavilion Centre on the Royal Cornwall Showground. It's free, but you do need to book. If you are interested, is it to let you know?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Right, being a better councillor. Cornwall Association Association of Local Councils is providing training sessions which will include the roles and responsibilities, understanding council procedures, code of conduct and law affecting first-tier councils. That's us. There are 2 options for attendance. There's a full day on the 16th of May or 2 evening sessions, one in March and one in April. The cost is £60 plus VAT per delegate, but if 3 of us go, then we get a discount of 15%. The 2-part one is £50 plus VAT with a 10% discount for 3 or more delegates per council. If you are interested in these, please will you let Gillian know?
Is it worth taking our 3 of us? I mean, on the basis there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
I'd be prepared to go if 3 of us are going.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else?
Would you be the day one or the evening one?
Do it all in one go, preferably.
Yes, but you can't, can you?
Well, I want to take a day off work for it. So
Oh, that's fair. No, okay, I'll do evening sessions then.
probably for an evening one, I think.
There's Burn here, all the rest of them, so
Yeah.
we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, so, it isn't just limited to 3. Yeah, because I think there are 1 or 2 of us who should still be doing code of conduct training. Right. Okay, so Julie, can you send out a reminder, please? Right. Information only and future agenda items. Yes, Adrian.
Bit of information I can let you all know. If you cast back to all the nonsense of the yard up next door to the campsite, the National Trust have now caved into Mr. Cox. The gate will now be locked and a fence will be going up between the site and the campsite at the cost to the National Trust.
So I thought it already was fence.
No, Mr. Cox had removed all the screen that had been there previously, but now his complaints, the National Trust have caved into him and will now erect a new fence on their side.
Thank you. No, we haven't had them on the winter.
Thankfully.
It's winter, isn't it?
Okay, thank you. Any other information, please? Or future agenda items? We've put on the tenders, haven't we?
What's happening to the 4th Street road repair, which should have gone ahead this January? Because that drain down there is collapsing yet again. It's sunk 6 inches in the road.
Thank you.
But the water's been down the road for a week, isn't it?
Water leaks everywhere.
Well, it's been reported, John, hasn't it?
Well, no, the one drain,
Oh, right.
the one down by the old bakery, down by Sunday, the sewer collapsed, which they repaired 3 times and failed to complete a successful repair. They assured us that they was going to dig it up and re-tarmac the road from Crumpets to back down to Corner, which got ripped up when the drain blew previously. But they haven't turned up to repair the road.
I thought they were going to shut 4th Street during the day as well.
Well, that's right.
Is that the same thing you're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's the thing, yeah. We're at the end of January and the repair hasn't been completed.
Right.
It hasn't even been started.
Yes, so they're not going to do it in the next few days, are they?
No.
Wouldn't it be better to do it sooner rather than later, before the season starts?
Yeah, okay.
Instead of doing it in August.
Right.
Oh, there's also Easter.
Right. Any other items, please, for the agenda?
The ones that come up in the...
Now, somewhere, and I can't remember where I saw it. No. Who was going to do a village walk?
We were going to look at the drains, the seats. The seats have been done, the salt bricks haven't been done, and the drains we're going to walk round.
Right.
A date? Can we fix a date?
Yeah. Date with the cameras working.
Available weekends.
Maybe we can get somebody to come along with it, help us.
Thank you. Right, so put that in place.
Did we set it?
Yeah, before half term would be good.
When's that term?
The week that's got the 18th of February in it.
Is it 17th? They play
16th, thank you.
14th of
Well, you want to hold hands on Valentine's Day, yeah? Going around the street, well, it's legal.
Start playing with that, wouldn't it?
Saturday the 14th.
Thank you very much. Right, if there isn't any more to go in there, we're now going on to item 12. Now, in view of the special and confidential nature of the business about to be transacted concerning a freedom of information request and staffing matters, it is advisable in the public interest that the press and public be excluded, and they are instructed to withdraw. I would like to thank you for being here today. Thank you very much.